These always sunny, brilliant Wall Street minds should keep what they learned from a challenging May for the markets close to their heart this summer. This is a president that looks dead set on winning a trade war with China, and now Mexico and potentially Australia, and may be inclined to let stocks dip further despite his nature to try and boost stock prices with tweets and grand policy pronouncements. So many people seem to believe that President Trump will come out and try to jawbone, or tweet, the market higher whenever it dips to any degree. His words and actions over the past week, during a market decline, throws a lot of doubt on that theory, says Miller Tabak strategist Matt Milley. You have been warned. Since then, Trump has ratcheted up the trade war rhetoric with China. Meanwhile, China has begun to return fire after seemingly plotting its plan of attack on the trade front for much of May. Not content with fresh tariffs on China, the self-described tariff man said he would levy a 5% tariff on all goods from Mexico on June 10 unless the country gets the migrant crisis under control. Tariff rates would gradually increase from there to 25% by October 1 barring a resolution. The market was blindsided by this. This is not good for the markets, Tom Essay, president of Sevens Report Research, said on Newspulse Finance's The First Trade. Indeed, the market enters June with a clear bias to the downside. The risk of backdrop for stocks sent investors piling into treasuries. The 10-year yield declined 2% in May from 2.5% at the start of the month. Traders returned to their desks on Monday looking at calls for a recession within a year from Morgan Stanley and another leg lower in the 10-year yield. Yet, in spite of the negative news, Trump has stayed mum on stocks. It's pretty remarkable to see him not try to pump up the souring markets. Trump has not hidden his view that the stock market is one of the most important benchmarks on the success of his presidency. Further, the president feverishly dines on cable news coverage of the markets, which have been anything but upbeat of late. In fact, Renaissance Macro Research estimates that negative news headlines on trade scalped 6% from the S&P 500 alone in May. The markets are clearly pricing in a more negative trade outcome, with many investors penciling in a full-blown trade war from a downside tail risk to the baseline outcome, writes Renaissance Macro's head economist Neil Dutta. Dutta thinks if the trade headlines continue along their current path and the administration does levy tariffs on all Chinese imports, the S&P 500 could nosedive to 2,600 from 2,752 currently. We don't know if the president will be willing to play hardball with China, or others, 6 to 8 months from now, when the election campaign really gathers some steam, but he certainly seems to be willing to play it right now, says Milley. Therefore, assuming that the stock and other markets cannot see a good-sized decline in the coming months could be quite painful. More importantly, it will make it much tougher to take advantage of such a decline if it does indeed take place. And don't expect the Federal Reserve to bail you out either, Perma bulls. Listening to the Fed speak recently, it sure seems like they want to be supportive, but it also sounds like they're not going to step in just because the stock market falls 7%, 10% or if growth falls towards the low single digits, Milley contends. Now, if the markets fall another 5% by mid-June, the return of the bullish Trump tweets on stocks, and less hawkish on trade, could easily return. But who knows, which makes this all incredibly fun, right? Brian Sozzi is an editor-at-large and co-host of The First Trade at Newspulse Finance. Follow Brian Sozzi him on Twitter at Brian Sozzi. Read the latest financial and business news from Newspulse Finance. Follow Newspulse Finance on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Flipboard, Smart News, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Reddit.